You're listening to Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions on product and business strategy. And now, here's your host, Bob Caporelli.
Welcome to another episode of Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions about product and business strategy. Real questions from real people in real companies, just like yours. Welcome back, strategy creators, and we have finally made it. This is episode 100. Unbelievable. Cue the balloons or whatever else might be. I was thinking about should I do sound effects or some other craziness for this show, but I opted to just keep it the way that we normally do it, which is standard and boring. But, I think that really this is a very meaningful number. A lot of podcasters and podcasts, they really try and get to this 100 episode milestone because it's hard to do, to be honest. Let me tell you, recording these things and editing them and having the discipline to keep going, it's not easy, especially when it's not, I would say, getting the biggest audience on the face of the planet as far as marketing spend goes, right? Of course, they're free to do, but they take a lot of time and a lot of resource. And for the amount of time and resource that it takes to do these podcasts and more to do the blogs that go along with each one, in our case, that's a lot of time to put in. And the amount of audience that you get from that probably is not a very good return on investment. But, most of us podcasters do this because we're passionate about the subjects that we're talking about. And that's exactly the case here. I want as many people to learn as possible about this subject of strategy and planning and, make it more exciting and more fun and more commonplace inside of businesses, not some academic, exercise. I want it to be something that is fun and easier for people. And that's why I do this every single day. So 100 episodes is really, really something I'm proud of. I hope that all of our loyal listeners have enjoyed this show and will continue to enjoy it because we plan to go way past 100 and well into the future. So anyway, thank you everyone for your support. But here's the ask. For those loyal listeners that we have, one source of frustration in this world of podcasting and inbound marketing and everything else is, in order to be found in the rankings, you have to have a lot of people that are interacting with your website or your podcast or whatever else. So, the way that Apple Podcasts rankings go, or Google Podcasts, anybody else's, is that if you type in certain keywords, the way that your show is going to be found is if you already have a lot of subscribers. But if you don't already have a lot of subscribers, then your show is not going to be found. And so because your show is not found, it's hard to get a lot of subscribers. So it's really, really difficult to be found in these things. So I'm going to ask that everyone who's a loyal listener share this show with at least 3 people, right? If everyone shares the show with 3 people, we're going to be up in the rankings a lot higher. A lot more people will find this show and a lot more people will be able to take advantage of the resource. So that's the only ask. Share it with 3 people. Everybody listening to the show has 3 coworkers, 3 friends, 3 neighbors, 3 family members that I'm sure can benefit from this material. So please go out and do that. Of course, if you're not a current subscriber, go subscribe to the show. We have a lot more great stuff coming for you. And of course, if you're not taking advantage of the blog that we put out every single episode that goes along with each show, go do that at dearstrategy.net or dearstrategy.com. Both will work. And it's really important that you take advantage of those resources as well. So happy 100 to us and to you. And thank you again for all that you do. Of course, the company that sponsors this show, Strategy Generation Company, that's the company that I own and founded and work for. And we offer training and tools and all kinds of other resources for companies and people that want to learn more about how they can develop strategies for their businesses. We focus mostly on product, business, and marketing strategy. But if you want to learn more about Strategy Generation Company, go out and visit us at strategygeneration.com, and you can take advantage of all the other things that we have to offer there as well. Okay, so to the question this week. So what are we going to do for our 100th episode? I could have just picked any question from the pile, but I wanted to ask something that was, I'd say, probably as basic as you can get, but I think really summarizes 100 episodes of what we've been doing here. And so here's the question that I'm putting forth. It is, Dear Strategy, what is a strategy? Now, you would think that after 100 episodes, We should have probably answered that already. And I'm sure in the context of all the other questions that we've gotten, we've given you a lot of different definitions of what strategy and a strategy is. But I do think that this is something that's worth covering here, because as we go into our next, generation of shows here, I want to make sure that we always have a good reference point to come back to. Say, hey, what exactly is a strategy? Well, go to episode 100 and you'll get the answer, right? And I really think it's important because no matter how much we try and clear this up, there's still a lot of confusion out there. And I think the confusion is caused by years and years and years and years of books and consultants and academics and universities and everybody else trying to teach this subject with their own little twist on it, their own little spin on it. And we each come up with a little acronym and a little different way of doing it and a little different methodology and a little different school of thought. And by the time you get done with that, after 50, 60 years of tweaking this process, I mean, people are literally going, like, I don't know what to do with all this, all the different terms and all the terminology. And like, it becomes so confusing and so overwhelming. And that translates inside of companies to people that are actually scared of this subject. Like, it's almost like, if I don't know what strategy is supposed to be, I don't know the academic way of doing it, I'm somehow a failure as a business leader. And man, do I just think that's the wrong thought process. So here's my answer. A strategy is a plan to achieve a goal. That's it. Now, when you really break that down and you say, okay, so when I think about a strategy, it's a plan to achieve a goal. What does that mean? How do I do that? That's where things get a little bit confusing, right? Because there's a lot of different ways to put together a plan. At the core of it, though, it's all the same stuff, which is you have to analyze where you are today. What's your current situation? You have to put some goal in place. What is it that you want to achieve? And then you have to have some way that you're going to achieve it, right? Somehow that you're going to achieve that goal. When you put all that together, that's what we're going to refer to as your strategy or your strategic plan. And it's really kind of as simple as that. Now, there are terminologies that have been used, like the actual how you achieve your goals. A lot of people call those strategic initiatives. Some people call them strategic directions or strategic priorities. Some people just call those strategies, right? And I think that causes some confusion. I do that as well. Some of the simplified systems that I have for small businesses and personal strategy, I call those high-level strategic initiative statements strategies as well, because a lot of people don't think in terms of initiatives, right? They think in terms of like, what am I going to do? And so calling those things strategies are simple, but don't let that confuse you, because a strategy is the result of that analysis and the goal setting. The strategy is the culmination of that, which is how are you going to actually achieve your goals based on what's going on in your situation. But that's really the core of it. Now, when you take this to a business environment, the type of analysis you need to do, well, there's three basic areas you have to do it on, right? Your company, your customers, and your competitors. In our process, we call that the business, the market, and the industry. But at the end of the day, it's all the same stuff, right? Company, customers, competitors. You have to understand what's going on with those things. Once you understand what's going on with those things, you put together a goal of what you want to achieve. Your plan has to be how you're going to achieve your goal based on the situation that you're in, right? And that's essentially where you're going. Now, when you're putting your strategy together, there's some amount of predicting the future and anticipating what's going to happen and all those different things. But at the end of it, it's really those same basic steps over and over again. Your analysis of where you are, your setting of the goal of where you want to go, and then the strategy of how you're going to get there. That's it. So if you try and make it more complex than that, you're really going down a bad path. Now, I'll tell you, every other thing that you've learned, every other book that's been written about strategy, it gives you different tools, different techniques, different little ways to come at those same things, right? So there's a million ways you can analyze where you are or where you think things are going. So of course, everyone's got their own little tool, their own little technique, their own little way of doing it, right? Similarly, there's a million ways you can set goals. There's a million types of goals you can set. There's a million ways that you can put together strategies. So, there's a whole bunch of different techniques that are out there, but it's all basically centered around the same stuff. And whether you're using a formal process, like some of the ones we teach through Strategy Generation Company or talk about on this show, Or you're just doing it intuitively, right? You're just doing it based on your own gut instinct. Like, hey, I'm taking a look at what's going on around me, putting together a goal, and then I'm going to put together a plan on how I'm going to achieve those goals based on what's going around me. You could do that through your head as easily as you could do it by taking a class. So whichever way you're doing it, the important thing about strategy is that you are doing it. And that's really the goal that we've always had with this show. It's the goal that I have with my company. It's the goal that I have through the workshops. It's for people to be more strategic, to think more strategically, to act more strategically, to plan more. Don't just react. Don't just be random in your actions. Don't just zigzag around going after the next greatest thing, right? Put a plan together and be measured about it. And that's how companies succeed. That's how people succeed. And when we stop doing that, by the way, when we stop doing that, we get overly reactive to everything. We get emotional. We stop thinking with our heads and start only acting with our hearts. And I will tell you, acting with your heart is a noble thing to do. But when the world is only based on that, you get a lot of bad things that could happen because you're not putting any forethought into anything. How many times have you written an email out of, kind of just anger or emotion, and then you hit the send button, and then an hour later, you realize the situation wasn't anywhere near as bad as you thought it was, and you regret hitting that send button? You know what would have fixed that? A strategy. Taking a little time to really analyze the situation, understand what it is that you want to achieve, and then put a strategy in place as to how you want to go about achieving that. Instead of just hitting the button out of anger or emotion or whatever else, do a little planning. I never bring politics into this show, and I don't plan to do so now. I am very much right down the middle, right? I don't sit on one side of the coin or another. I go towards whatever policy I think is the right policy. And usually it's not all one party or another that I would go for. But I will tell you this, there's a lot of divisiveness in this country right now in the US. And I'm not saying it's new. I mean, it's kind of always been that way to some extent. But what I see more than ever now is that people just hit that send button way too early. They're just reacting emotionally over and over and over and over again without taking any time to really analyze the situation, really analyze what people are saying. Don't just take your preconceived notions and throw it out there for the world to see. Just hit the send button without any real forethought about what the implications are of what it is that you're doing or saying. It's nuts. And everybody on every side of the political coin is guilty of doing this today because it's so easy with the tools we have through social media and everything else, right? And the reason I mention this is because that same thing is starting to happen inside of companies. React fast because the whole world is reacting fast. We have to react faster, right? And so if somebody's going to tweet about us in a bad way, we got to react really quickly without really even taking any time to analyze. What are we reacting to? That's why I think this is so important. Strategy is the answer to these things. When we just react emotionally without taking time to plan and think and analyze, then we're going to make mistakes over and over and over again. And we're going to have regrets. We're going to say things that we wish we didn't say. We're going to say things that are just downright wrong because we didn't take the time to understand what was really going on. I really think that the answer to this question, what is a strategy, is the answer to a lot of problems that we're facing right now, particularly in the US. And I really believe that if we all take a little bit more time to just stop and think and analyze and plan our responses, we'll find that maybe things aren't quite as excitable as we thought they were before we hit that send button. So, take that to your personal lives, take that to your professional lives, take that wherever you want. But that's what I think strategy is. So that's my kind of off the rails response for episode 100. Obviously, if you agree, don't agree, whatever else, please reach out to us. Let us know. Go to dearstrategy.com or dearstrategy.net. Both go to the same place. Click on the Ask a Question link up in the upper right-hand corner. It'll take you to a contact form. You can reach out to us. Let us know what you think or ask a question to be featured on a future show, which there will be many. While you're doing that, please don't forget to make time for the plan. And we'll see you back here on many more episodes of Dear Strategy. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for listening to Dear Strategy with Bob Caparelli. To learn more or to submit a question to be featured on our show, please visit us at dearstrategy.net.